Hello, everybody. Scott Morganoff, Motor City Mad Mouse Show here in Miami. I'm wearing an Iceland shirt. This guy's wearing a University of Miami shirt. Way smarter than I am. I know how cold it is up there, and the AC is what it is in here. But pleased to have him on the show. Thanks, Coach, for joining me.
Yeah, thanks for having me. Really appreciate it.
All right, I talked to Ray Joseph earlier. Tell me how much of a role that he'll have on this team, on special teams. I know he played a bit of a role last year.
Sure. Guys like Ray, he obviously showed what he can do in the return game last year, but every position we're evaluating guys that can help on teams. And, guys that are receivers may not be just return guys. We're evaluating to be hold-up guys, find out which receivers can tackle and what skill guys can tackle. So, Ray, along with a bunch of other guys, in the return game, we've brought in a lot of experienced transfer guys that have had some experience in the return game, as well as some younger guys and freshmen that we feel like can help compete for that job too. So, in the return game, we're always about figuring out who the best punt catcher and best kick catcher is first before we say who's our best returner, right? Because our goal is to end the down with the ball. So we have to figure out who our most secure punt fielder and kick fielder is, and that's what camp's for, right? So we have a long list of guys, whether it's veteran guys that have been here, veteran guys that have just came in here, younger guys that have been here that are going to compete for that, all these returner jobs, and we're going to put them in those positions in camp and figure out who that best guy is.
Boy, you set me up really, really well for this one because we talk about transfers, and I know the one thing in this day and age in college football, let alone college sports, is you can get well fast in a lot of areas through the transfer portal. Do you feel that you were able to benefit a lot by the transfer portal to be able to bolster that aspect of special teams?
Oh, absolutely. Our coaches and staff and recruiting staff did an unbelievable job with the guys that we brought in, receivers, DBs that are going to help us in coverage in our return phases. So as a special teams coach, I'm incredibly fired up with our depth at those positions and figuring out who are the best guys that can go out there and help us in the kicking game. And that's what these first couple weeks of camp are going to be. A lot of drill work, a lot of tackling stuff to figure out, hey, there may be an offensive guy that's a better tackler than we thought. There may be a guy that you don't think has a knack for putting his hands and blocking a punt or field goal. And that's what all of our drill work in these next couple weeks is going to be, and I'm really excited for it.
Let's talk about Andy Borregale. It's certainly a pleasure to talk to the last couple of years, but how much was he a pleasure to coach, and how did it feel knowing that this guy was practically the closest thing to automatic?
Oh, yeah. He was unbelievable, and it all starts with his mindset, right? And, the confidence he approached every day, the teammate that he was, the competitor that he was, and a kid that came here as a 140-pound true freshman and developed himself into a 200-pound best kicker in the country and first kicker taken in the NFL draft. So, that family I cannot speak more highly of, starting with his unbelievable parents and obviously Jose, who had an opportunity to coach as well. And then Andy comes in, was an absolute coach's dream the last 4 years. And like you said, it felt real good as a special teams coach when you trot him out to make a kick. But moving into this season, I feel like we have two guys that are going to fit in seamlessly, and they're going to compete to see who that best guy is throughout camp.
Stay with Andy for one more question on him. How do you think he's going to do with the New England Patriots up there? Because I know New England could be an interesting place. I know you have the cold weather up there, and the winds are out there. But if there's anybody that seems to have the mindset to do it, I think Andy would be pretty good.
Oh, no question. His mindset's built for it. But, what a lot of people don't realize in the kicking game is wind is a little bit bigger of a factor than the cold itself, right? And he dealt with every day on Green Tree. We have some serious winds that are coming off the water and dealing with practice. So he's a real experienced guy in the wind, and he's shown that in game situations. And I think knowing Andy like I do, using that, playing in the cold as a chip in his shoulder is something that people think he may struggle in. It's just one thing that's going to motivate him to be even great. So I think he's going to go up there and show Patriot fans what he's shown Canes fans the last 4 years.
I've always wanted to ask a special teams coach this, and I did this with my guy, Coach John Bonamego, who's now a special teams guy with the University of Tennessee. So here's the question I'm going to present to you, Danny. How many games, if they don't go well or do go well, that special teams could have an impact with in the win-loss column?
Well, there's a lot of things in teams that are obvious that will affect winning and losing, but there's a lot of things that we focus on primarily that the normal fan or normal eyes wouldn't recognize, right? So our number one job on special teams is to win the field position battle, right? So that's one thing where, hitting yardage and winning the field position battle that fans or someone may not really recognize and that's every game. every game we play, if we do our job to set the offense up in the best position, set the defense up in the best position, we're truly affecting games. So the answer to that question is every game, where we're out there setting up our offense and defense, and then hopefully we're winning that explosive play battle as well, where we're getting points on the board, we're taking points off the board as well. But in terms of field position, momentum, that's an every game type of thing.
All right, but you talked about it from a we standpoint, which I totally exactly appreciate where you're coming from. But from an overall generality standpoint for the average football fan per se, okay,
Sure.
Would you say that the performance of special teams could cost the team maybe at least 2 games, 3 games in the win column, overall record-wise?
Well, I can tell you this. Statistically, in the last 5 years, 27% of games are one-possession games in college football.
Okay.
So you take that right off there. That's 4 of our regular season games where we can affect, where we block a field goal, we make a field goal, we return a touchdown, we prevent a touchdown, where that's 4 games just based off the stats right there. But like I said, it's truly an every game type of thing.
And that's just across the board, every game across the board in terms of how you assess special teams. Last year, Miami did pretty well for the most part, but then toward the end, there were a few little hiccups down the road. What do you think will be much different from this team versus what we saw last year?
Well, for us, it's obviously players over plays, right? So we really revamped our roster where I feel really comfortable that we have a plethora of guys that are going to really revamp our return units, but also our coverage units. And then it's our job as coaches to spend all off-season evaluating, meeting with people of little changes that we can do schematically. But the thing that I'm most excited for is that concept of players over plays, and that this is the roster where the roster revamp isn't, you're not only going to see it on offense and defense, but these new plethora of guys are truly going to help us in the kicking game.
And another question that just came to mind, you had Cam Ward this year, you have Carson Beck. We know that field position is predicated on the quarterback position. What did you like about what you saw with Cam Ward, and what are your early returns here with Carson Beck?
Yeah, so as a special teams coach, we're not spending too much one-on-one times on the quarterbacks and watching the offense in practice. Last year we weren't punting the ball more, right, which puts a little strain on the punter because he doesn't get in a groove. And if we're not punting the ball a lot, that's a good thing for the Miami Hurricanes. So I fully anticipate with our offense as a whole, not only at the quarterback position, that we're going to be in the same method. But, we kind of view it differently where regardless of who's playing what position, it's our job to, hey, when we're punting the ball, we want to pin them deep and put our defense playing on a long field. When we're returning the ball, we want to get explosives and have our offense returning on a short field. And for me as a coach and all of our coaches that work in special teams, that's regardless of who's playing in certain positions.
Fair enough. My final question, what's it like working with Coach Mario Cristobal? Obviously, if there's a guy that knows the area, I know you obviously being a Miami guy as well, but if there's a guy that I know is capable of taking this school to elite levels, it's him. How do you feel about what he's meant to you as your boss?
Oh, he's meant everything to me. And, as a special teams coach, it means even more because of his involvement of what we do on special teams, right? Having the head coach's involvement not only sets the tone for the culture and the importance of special teams, but with Coach Cristobal, he has innate in-depth knowledge of all of our techniques and all of our schemes. So he's out there coaching just like us, just like all of our assistants. And as a special teams coach, that means everything for us.
Well, Danny, I want to thank you very much for your time this afternoon. I look forward to catching up with you later, but looking forward to a great year. You have some pretty good opponents on that team. You have Florida, you got Notre Dame, and you have a lot of great opponents, and you'll be at Hard Rock 8 times. I'm sure you got to be looking forward to what's ahead.
We are super fired up. This is fired up as I've been going into a camp, and we're ready to put that ball on the tee and tee it up on August 31st. But before we get there, I'm looking forward to these next couple weeks of really seeing what our guys can do, getting in competitive situations, and really drilling down on technique and fundamentals. That's really where our mind's at, and as we move forward, then the other stuff will be exciting too.
And I'm looking forward to seeing them in the interview rooms, because then I know exactly what impact you're making with them, and we'll see how they feel as we get deeper into this thing. Thanks again, Coach Kalter. Much appreciated.
Yep, thank you very much.